The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
So hello and welcome to another episode of the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host Matthew Hurley. I'm joined today as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now, this week on the podcast, Kieran was joined by Enya Breen as she chatted everything Rugby World Cup, which is coming up later in the year. She's obviously West Cork Rugby royalty, and Enya will be a great listen later in the podcast. But first, we will discuss some recent going on in West Cork sport, and obviously one place to start, obviously, John Cleary's footballers live to fight another day. They beat Roscommon in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Group 2 encounter, 19 points to 17 in Laois Hire O'Moore Park to keep their season alive. And that their season alive is rolling on to this weekend when they face the mighty Dublin in Croke Park in the All-Ireland preliminary quarter-final this Saturday at 6:15 p.m. So, a lot to pack in there, Kieran. But firstly, the Roscommon game. A lot of pressure on the players to deliver a performance. They did, to be fair to them, in spades. Brilliant performance by them to get over the line in a game that they had to win. And you could see they were ecstatic afterwards, the players. Like even meeting John Cleary afterwards, I never seen him so happy after a win. So it was probably just a weight off the shoulders for the players and the management against Roscommon.
That's a great description, Matthew, a weight off their shoulders. I think it's just a huge relief because Cork went into last weekend kind of... it was effectively a knockout football tie. Cork had to win the game to progress and stay alive in the championship. So their backs were to the wall. And I suppose the reality is Cork coming off the back of 3 championship defeats in a row, Kerry in the Munster semi-final, and Meath in the group stage, and Kerry again. So the form, you could say the form lines weren't great in terms of results, to lose 3 championship games in a row and knowing that you had to win. And against a higher ranked team as well, which is always kind of a positive. Obviously, Roscommon were in Division 2 this year with Cork. Beat Cork by 13-14 points earlier in the year. Roscommon got promoted back up to Division 1, so they are a higher ranked football team than Cork. So for Cleary's crew to go and do what they did, I think it's for that group itself, it's really unifying. It has to be, it's kind of those big results like that because you put in all that slog, all that hard work. So to have moments like that, like a win like that, and to see the celebrations after, means a hell of a lot to those players. You have to go back a couple of years ago when Cork beat Mayo up and I think it was the Gaelic grounds, and then went and beat Roscommon. Huge wins at the time, it looked like for Cork. Okay, didn't kick on after. Go back to last summer up in Parky Ring, Cork beat Donegal. Again, it seemed at the time a big moment for the Cork footballers. Okay, and again they didn't kick on after. Last Saturday, again, it looked like it was a big moment for this Cork football team, getting the result with their backs to the wall and getting the performance too. And now what we need to see, Matthew, we really do need to see this Cork team kick on because it would be disappointing to go to Dublin this weekend. That is the expectation amongst most kind of seasoned observers, that Dublin will have too much. But you just hope that Cork can build on a bit of momentum off that Roscommon win.
The thing is, moving into Dublin, I'm guessing as well, like a lot of people do probably have Dublin as favourites, but more so slight favourites, because even look at some graphs over the week, like Cork and Dublin stats seem very, very similar in terms of like Cork score more 2-pointers. Both sides don't score a lot of goals. Both sides don't concede a lot of goals. Both have played the same level of opposition, and probably Dublin are favourites because it's Dublin. Obviously, they have lost a lot of players throughout the last few years. Brian Fenton and James McCarthy both retired the last year or so. Jack McCaffrey's not in the panel this year. Michael Fitzsimons is not there. Paul Mannion, Dean Rock retired over the last few years as well. So it is a very, very different Dublin team to the 6-in-a-row side, and the side that won 8 All-Irelands in 10 seasons. So in that kind of aspect, it is hopeful from a Cork point of view that they could pull off a shock, but they will probably need to produce a really big performance to beat this Dublin team. And to be fair to them against Roscommon, they did so in the second half, converting 9 shots out of 12. You probably wouldn't have seen that out of Cork football performances over the last few weeks or so. So is there hope that they can pull off a scalp this weekend?
I think there is, Matthew. Like, you even got a touch that there is in the Cork shooting efficiency and conversion rate in the second half. That's the level that Cork have showed now they can hit that level. They need to do it again. Like, that's what I was saying earlier, have to back up what Cork did against Roscommon. It was an impressive performance, an impressive result, but it needs to be a building block onto something bigger. And you're right, again, this is not let's say the vintage Dublin team of a couple of years ago. You know, like the band is broken up and the different members are going off doing their own thing. But this is still quite a formidable Dublin team all the same. Just looking at them the last couple of games, it's like they're obviously not at the level of the great Dublin team, but they're a team that could have a say when they're All-Ireland, where the All-Ireland goes this year. I don't think they're going to win it. I don't think they're at that stage, but they still have a lot of seasoned campaigners in there, and there's some young players who've come on and added to the team, and they came out of that group of death. They finished second in that, and you look, the Dublin won away to Galway. Then finished off obviously with a 2-point win against Derry last weekend. They finished second in the group, and I'm writing about it in this week's Southern Star out on Thursday about the Dublin game against Armagh. They lost by 5 points, but it's 17 wides in that game. They were missing Con O'Callaghan. They had 3 rule breaches. They had a couple of shots off the woodwork. Others dropped short. So okay, they lost to Armagh, who are by a little distance the best team in the championship right now, but Dublin weren't too far off them. So that's why I think it's still quite a dangerous kind of Dublin team. Like they've had a disappointing campaign by their own kind of standards so far. Obviously relinquishing Leinster, who would have seen that? You know, we've all sounded the death knell for the Leinster championship, and they lost to me there. So they have lost more championship games this year than we have been used to seeing Dublin in the last decade. But they're going to be in their own backyard on Saturday evening. So that's why Cork need to bring a big performance. Like, has to be the best performance of the season. But you were there in Portlaoise on Saturday, Matthew. What impressed you about this Cork performance?
A lot of things. I would say the 3 aspects where you probably need to win the game is obviously midfield being the main one. Defence is another big one, and attack is a big one as well. In attack, as we mentioned earlier, 9 shots out of 12 in the second half, 75% efficiency. The defence deserve a lot of credit. I think touching on Daniel O'Mahony's last-minute block on Dermot Murtagh, that was Wall of the Rover stuff. That was a brilliant block by him. And even before that, Micheál Martin's save from Dara Craig. And even after that, Sean Brady's temperament to get back on the line as a goal-bound effort away, like that took a lot of commitment. Even before the Daniel O'Mahony shot, you could see the amount of Cork players trying to throw their bodies in front of the line for the cause, and that is admirable in fairness. You look at the midfield as well, the trio in midfield. I think Cork probably need to start those 3 in midfield on Saturday, in all honesty. Sean Walsh, Colm O'Callaghan and Liam Maguire, because they could cause Dublin a lot of problems. This is a Dublin team that have improved in midfield over the last few weeks, but like Colm O'Callaghan and Liam Maguire in particular were Lord in the skies on Saturday. Sean Walsh has been over the last few weeks as well. It's been a real find by John Cleary, to be fair. And even in attack, like Sean McDonald's been a brilliant find, and he converted 4 of his 5 shots on Saturday as well. Like, this Cork team is moving in the right direction in terms of those 3 aspects. The one thing which kind of irks a lot of people is the goal chances. And I think John Hayes mentioned in his column this week, another 3 goal chances went to begging on Saturday through Ian Maguire twice in the first half and Sean McDonald in the second half. If Cork are to beat Dublin, they need to take their goal chances. I know it's easier said than done, obviously, but it's a big aspect of the game that they need to do. Like, even look at other teams in the championship. Cork have the lowest goals per game ratio still in the championship of 0.2, which isn't great at all. They scored 1 goal in the championship, obviously, through Chris O against Kerry in the Munster semi-final. So they probably need to convert their goal chances when they get them. But every other aspect of play, you'd be very, very positive if you're following the Cork footballers right now, because like, you look at the defence is performing well. The attack, in terms of 2-pointers especially, are doing fantastic. And even midfield as well, there is a potential that they could get over this Dublin midfield. But then again, as I mentioned, Dublin are very good there as well. So it is going to be a very interesting game on Saturday. Another kind of element as well. The last championship meeting between the two sides, between Cork and Dublin, was 2022 when Cork lost that game by 11 points. I distinctly remember as well, Cleary got the players in a huddle in Croke Park on that night. And he was basically saying that this is the level that Cork need to get to now. Like, we lost by 11 points. The team can't do that again. And we probably, in the next few years, we have to come back out here again and produce a higher level of performance. Is that would that be, by the end of Saturday evening, Kieran, could that be an image that will be circulated around social media in a way?
I don't know exactly what you mean, because I'm writing about it in this week's column. What John Cleary said after that loss to Dublin in the 2022 quarter-final, he was just making a point how far, I suppose, and he was very honest, like, the Cork was so far behind the top teams, and that's exactly the level that Cork need to aim for. So he's had to wait 3 seasons for another chance to get one over Dublin back in Croke Park, and it's almost 3 years to the day since that All-Ireland quarter-final in 2022. So we're going to see on Saturday, Matthew, has the gap closed or not? You know, kind of, are Cork closer to the top teams? And Dublin are still, okay, not what they were, but they're still one of the top teams in the country. Is that gap still there? Has it closed somewhat? Or where is this Cork team? There is an expectation that Cork will put it up to Dublin for 50-55 minutes, and Dublin will just kind of pull away then towards the end. That's you see that kind of expectation in a lot of games like this when you've an underdog against a favourite. But how Cork performed in the second half the last day, I think, will give you just a bit of hope. You know, a bit of hope that that Cork can go the full 70 minutes here. And just a couple of more reasons to give you a bit of hope, Matthew, for Cork fans out there. Dublin have lost their last 2 championship games in Croke Park. Quarter-final against Galway last year and against Armagh, like I mentioned earlier, in this year's championship. Dublin haven't scored a goal in their last 2 games either. You know, kind of, I know they got a couple of goals in Leinster. So, like I'm saying, this isn't the formidable Dublin team of old, but they're still in their natural habitat of Croke Park. And the fact that it's a double header with the Dublin hurlers against Limerick as well, you would envisage a big, decent crowd in Croke Park, a big, decent Dublin crowd in Croke Park on a Saturday evening up there as well. So they'll have that home support behind them. But Cork have, like I said, they'll have a bit of momentum, a bit of belief, kind of coming off the back of last weekend. And I was listening to the Indo GA Sport podcast this week and did Philly McMahon on it, and he was just saying he's not writing off this Cork team. He was just chatting about when Dublin played Cork in a lot of challenge games over the years when he was still playing with Dublin, that he always had the kind of vibe off Cork, as in just not frightened of Dublin, as in like kind of so what that you're Dublin, you know, there's a confidence, probably that innate Cork confidence that's there. So he's kind of, I suppose, wary, like a good few people will be, of what this Cork team can produce. But it comes down to this again, Matthew. This Cork team has been so inconsistent. Not alone this team, but go back to the last 6, 7, 8 years. And if you look back to last year, Cork beat Donegal, and 2 games later, that performance against Louth to get dumped out of the championship. We have been here before. Like there's trust issues between the Cork football team and the fans, because fans have just been left so disappointed when they get their hopes up, and next thing, all of a sudden, bang, you know, kind of reality hits, and Cork to kind of turn in a poor performance and they're out. So that's why the hope is Cork can give a performance this Saturday. And another little kind of stat to cling some hope to: this is Cleary's 4th championship season in charge. In the previous 3 campaigns, Cork have put back-to-back championship wins together. They haven't yet this campaign. They have that win against Roscommon. If it's back-to-back championship wins this year, Cork are looking forward to quarter-final.
We'll have to see what happens. Obviously, just before we move on, I have to ask you, who do you think will win this game? Do you think Cork will put off the shock? Because a lot of people are saying there's going to be, across the board, the preliminary quarterfinals, there's going to be a shock somewhere. A lot of people are saying either down in Galway and Park Esther or this game here. Do you think the shock could be here?
I think there's a chance the shock could be in Croke Park. A lot of things need to go right for Cork to be there. But this team has shown as in that they can beat the big teams. Like I mentioned them earlier in the podcast, this Cork team came very close to kind of toppling Kerry in the Munster Championship. Okay, we've seen what Kerry have done since, so maybe that kind of could water that down a small bit, but that's still quite a good Kerry team. Cork can do it. A lot needs to go right. Need to hit the ground running. Like, you have a great piece, Matthew, in this Thursday Southern Star about the midfield battle and how Cork really need to kind of come out on top there. Given obviously Cluxton's in goal for Dublin, and his kickouts were starting to land the last day against Derry. Like, his accuracy there, I think they got 19 out of 22 or something along that. Is in it was really, really accurate. So off their own kickouts. So can it happen? Yeah, Cork definitely have a chance here, and Cork have a better chance here than they had to go back to 2022, because the gap between Cork and Dublin has closed somewhat. We'll see what it's like on Saturday, but yeah, I would give Cork a chance here.
I'll give him a massive chance, to be fair, but we'll have to see what happens on Saturday between Cork and Dublin, the real capital against probably the people's capital, but we will see what happens on Saturday.
And I just have to add for our listeners, Matthew, just to show, like, when Matthew says he's given Cork a massive chance, he really is, because inside the Star office this week after the draw was made, our digital manager Tony O'Shaughnessy, the Limerick man who's gone into hiding since the beating his boys took in the Munster hurling final, when we learned that it was going to be Cork and Dublin, Tony just assumed kind of, oh, that's going to be Dublin win. And Matthew, in fairness, piped up and said, I wouldn't be too sure about that, Matthew. So Matthew has made his colours to the Cork mast very, very, very early this week. So given Tony's look in kind of calling games the last couple of weeks, if Tony's going for Dublin, I think that's good news for Cork fans.
Absolutely. We'll have to see what happens. Very much looking forward to this weekend, obviously. And as well as that, there are two other intercounty teams in action on Saturday as well. And starting off with the Cork ladies footballers, the LGFA team, they're up against Mayo after they lost last weekend to Kerry in their first group stage game, 2-9 to 5-7. Obviously, the goals, the real Cork in this game. Obviously, Anya Terry O'Sullivan and Katie Quark, brilliant goals for Cork in this game, but ultimately Kerry's firepower just got them over the line this one, which means now, Kieran, this game in Castlebar against Mayo, which is on at 3 p.m. on Saturday in Hastings Insurance McHale Park, this means Cork have to win this game. If they draw this game, they're out of it. They can't make the All-Ireland quarterfinals in the Ladies Football Championship. They have to beat Mayo. It's a tough place to go, Castlebar, but probably a positive for Joe Carroll's side in a way is Mayo haven't been too good themselves either. They're very, very reliant on Sinead Walsh up front. So we'll have to see what happens with Cork this weekend. But the main thing is they have to win.
Exactly. Yeah. It's effectively, it is a knockout game for the Cork ladies footballers. They look back at the game against Kerry last weekend and they'll be delighted with the first half, but just frustrated with that second half performance. Cork led 2-6 to 1-3 at half time in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and that was after Kerry getting the ideal start. Kerry got a goal early on, but Cork really got back into that game and held a 6-point lead. But just at the start of the second half, it was a sloppy Cork goal, to be quite honest. There was a turnover back there and Kerry finished, and Kerry rattled off 3 goals, I think in the first 10 minutes of the second half, and that just turned the game in its head. And then Cork were playing kind of catch up, and Daniel O'Leary then got Danielle got the 5th goal for Kerry later on to put a bit of glass on the scoreboard. But I was chatting to Anya Terry O'Sullivan on Monday for a piece for Thursday Southern Star, and like, she makes the point that if Cork can replicate their first half performance in terms of intensity and work rate, it gives them a good chance on Saturday up in Castlebar. So the Cork team knows what they have to do. Like, the permutation's very simple. It's very much like the men's footballers last weekend against Roscommon. Win or we're out. The whole season is on the line here. It's been a decent campaign for Joe Carroll in his first year in charge. Obviously getting promotion from Division 2 back up to Division 1 at the first time of asking. Kind of the Munster Championship now is obviously Kerry they're the dominant team, like in ladies football at the moment. They're the Munster champions, league champions, All-Ireland champions. So they are the barometer right now. But Cork showed in that first half that there is potential in this team. There really is. They have a lot of learning to do as well. They can't be making the mistakes of giving the turnovers that they have been doing. But there is potential for this Cork team to go up to Castlecar and get a result. But again, it needs to be a kind of a more complete performance than what we saw last weekend.
Absolutely. So I'm wishing Joe Carroll and his team the best of luck at this weekend against Mayo. Moving to the Camogie as well, the Cork Camogie team are in action on Saturday at 2 p.m. in Super Valley Park. They face Clare this Saturday, and unlike the men's footballers and the ladies footballers, to a certain extent the hurlers in the Munster final over the last few weeks, the Camogie team are under no pressure really. You would imagine Cork will probably top this group. That signals an All-Ireland semi-final already. But this Cork team are moving along very, very nicely at this present moment in time. But they are just so far ahead of the pack at this present moment in time. I know the All-Ireland isn't won yet, but you'd imagine they'll be clear this weekend. I think, honestly, John Manley is, I wouldn't forgive him for this, but I think they're already thinking towards the latter end of the championship right now, because right now the Cork team are going very, very well. Well, since we last actually talked about that, we said they didn't concede a goal, the Cork team. They have now conceded a goal against Tipperary. So that record's been broken, but still the results stay the same. Cork are on an absolute train to victory right now.
Yeah, look at our two results so far, Matthew. So in the last game, it was Cork 3-21, Tipperary 1-9. Like you said, Tip getting the goal there. Cork had nearly gone a full year without conceding a goal, which is just absolutely remarkable. In the game before that, it was Cork 6-25, Limerick 5 points. So Cork have a scoring difference so far after two games of plus 56, which is just, it's bonkers, like, kind of when you're talking about All-Ireland Senior Championship stuff here, and this Cork team has put up a total of 73 points in the first two games. So they're averaging 36 points per game, like, which is just kind of, it shows you where this Cork team is right now. And in fairness to the Cork Camogie team, and we've said it before, they are the best Cork inter-county team out there right now in terms of they are just dominant, and it's just brilliant, ruthless dominance of Camogie. They're the league champions. They're the reigning Munster champions. They're the reigning All-Ireland champions. They're going for 3 in a row. And they'll be fancy to beat Clare on. Well, you have to back them and fancy them to beat Clare in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on I think it's Saturday, isn't it? Saturday 2:00. Yeah, Saturday 2:00. So then you're looking at this Cork team with 3 wins in a row, and you're looking to top the group and get directly through to the All-Ireland semi-final. So right now, it's kind of all systems go for this Cork team. It's looking quite positive. You can never be too sure. Sport is sport after all, and there will be a game up there quite soon, I would think, where Cork will be tested. It kind of has to happen. So you'd hope that when that game does come, that Cork aren't undercooked as such, because they've just been so dominant. So, but it's so far so good, and long may it continue.
Exactly. So, and obviously, if the team probably don't need luck, they'll probably win the game at the weekend, but we'll have to see what happens in that particular game. We'll take a quick break now, and after the break, we'll be talking all things rugby with Enya Breen.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So welcome back to the podcast, and in a while we'll go to Kieran's chat with Enya Breen, West Cork Rugby royalty, obviously. But Enya has a memorable event coming up, obviously, this season, the Rugby World Cup in England. This is a big event for any player, but for Enya, it's a massive event, being one of the main players on the Ireland team, obviously, and going over to England as well to play in this Rugby World Cup. It's an event that she is looking forward to, I'd imagine, Kieran.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was lovely to catch up with Enya, because we're almost starting the countdown to the Rugby World Cup, which is on in England, and it's kicking off in August. So India's part of the kind of training group at the moment. They're coming to the end of their first kind of 3-week camp. They'll have a break next week, and then they'll be back at it again, and things will be starting to crank up for the Rugby World Cup. And for Enya, it's her first Rugby World Cup. Ireland didn't qualify for the last one 4 years ago, so you have to go back 8 years till the last time that an Irish women's team were in the Women's Rugby World Cup. So obviously Enya's excited. Like, it's a huge occasion for her, for her family, for her friends, for Skibbereen Rugby Club, for Munster. She really is I suppose, the leading West Cork women's rugby player right now, and she's been there for the last number of years. Like, she captained the Irish women's rugby team twice at the end of last year, which is a incredible honour for the Castletownshend woman. Like, you're going to hear quite soon from Enya now, but we talk about Laura Guest as well, who is kind of, I suppose, West Cork women's rugby royalty. She's the kind of Kilty woman who I think she played in 3 World Cups. Laura did, so she had an incredible career. So it's just super to see a West Cork woman, touch wood, all going well, will be representing this region on the World Cup stage in a couple of months' time. So it was super to catch up with Enya, and as you hear from her now, she's in good form and looking forward to the weeks and months ahead. Delighted now to be joined in the Star Sport podcast by Irish rugby star Enya Breen. Welcome to the podcast, Enya.
Thanks for having me, Kieran.
We're now what? We're in June now, a couple of months out from the Women's Rugby World Cup. Is it starting to get real?
Yeah, it is. I think we're, God, 2 months out now, 8 weeks or something. Um, and yeah, we're well underway with preseason. It's week 3 now of our first block, so it's been very tough, but yeah, it's hugely exciting as well.
Like you've obviously played in big competitions before, and the Six Nations and all that. But this is a Rugby World Cup. Like it's going to be your first Rugby World Cup. Like how excited are you for that?
To be honest, I was only thinking about it the other day, and I realized that I haven't really thought too much about how it actually is a World Cup. I think only Clean Maloney is our only team member who's been at a World Cup before, so it's a very new experience for us as a group. And it's something this is something I've wanted to play in for years. Unfortunately, we didn't qualify for New Zealand 2021. But yeah, to finally get the chance and to do it only over the pond as well is unbelievable.
The fact that it's on over in England, like it's almost like a home away from home World Cup. You have a lot of family and friends from here, from West Cork, just making the trip across the water.
Yeah, absolutely. I everybody I talk to seems to be going. Everyone seems to be trying to go to the Black Ferns game. So yeah, it's great for them. It's great for it to be so accessible and so close. And I've friends, I've family members over in England as well that will only love to make the trip down to a game or two. So yeah, it's brilliant to have that support and that kind of community behind you, because I'm doing it for them as well, as much as I'm doing it for myself. So to be able to share that experience with them is hugely special.
Like you've always had a super back in from West Cork around Skibbereen right across the region, and you're following in some very famous footsteps. Laura Guest from Clonakilty, she played in a Rugby World Cup before, so you're continuing that proud tradition that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully some of the lads now in the next few years will be the West Cork lads will be at a World Cup as well in the next few years. So yeah, it's incredible to follow Guesty's footsteps. She's kind of a legend of the game. But yeah, to be able to represent West Cork and strengthen those rugby roots from West Cork up to the international stage is brilliant.
You mentioned there you're in week 3 of preparation. I suppose the preparation squad was named a couple of weeks ago as well, and it's all like everything is now kind of pointing towards the World Cup. Can you sense that this kind of preparation is different to, let's say, preparation for Six Nations and so on, or what do you try and do with that in you? Do you try and keep it as normal as possible, or try and, for the fact it's a World Cup, does that change anything?
I think it does and it doesn't. It's probably it's the first time we've all done a preseason as a whole 30 odd 40 ever, so it gives a great buzz around the place, and we've never really spent this long in camp, so it's different, but it's also different in a good way. Like we're all getting to enjoy each other's company, we're all struggling through it together, because it's tough, but it's kind of in these tough sessions, whether it's in the boiling heat or the pouring rain like it was last week, where you kind of make memories, you enjoy it, and you strengthen the bonds and the trust you have in each other as well. And yeah, it's a great group, and to be able to be part of it is unreal, and I wouldn't want to do it with any other people really.
How much do you enjoy the slog and the hard work?
I do enjoy it. Yeah, I hate it at the time, but mentally I think I love it.
It's like, and it's all part of like that preparation that'll take you towards the World Cup. And you mentioned the Black Ferns there, to play New Zealand, the defending champions, in a World Cup, like in one of the group games, like that's going to be an incredible occasion.
Oh yeah, it'll be unbelievable. I think the stadium in Brighton is supposed to be great as well. So yeah, apparently it's sold out already. And like to playing a New Zealand team in a World Cup is kind of something you don't that never really comes around too often. I know we got to play against them last year for my first time anyway. And I've been playing 6 odd years for the international team. So to be able to do it twice in 1 year and one of them be at a World Cup is unreal, because you want to test yourself against the best on the world stage. And yeah, I'm sure they'll be gunning for us, but Jesus, we'll be gunning for them as well.
100%. And before that, obviously 2 more group games, Japan and Spain. Like, kind of, when you're looking at that group, what's your first kind of thoughts? Kind of how tough is it? What's your own kind of initial reaction to the group?
Yeah, I think, like, it's a World Cup. It's knockout rugby. It's not something knockout rugby isn't something we're hugely familiar with. So no matter what group you get, it kind of all focuses on the first game and getting a good start. I think we've Japan up first, so yeah, they'll be a huge test. Like, they're all oppositions we're kind of familiar with from the last few years. Like, we went over to Japan a few years ago. We played Spain in WXV 2 years ago, I think, and New Zealand last year. So, like, we've been in tight games against all three. So we can't really look past one game or the next. So yeah, I think once we get closer to it, it'll be all eyes on Japan in that first game, because getting a good start and getting up and running well will be the most important thing to kind of build momentum.
You mentioned WXV there, and obviously the tournament in the last year went so well for Ireland, and especially for you, the captain Ireland for the first time, an incredible experience. But I think you proved in Canada that you can mix it with the best. So how much can you take from WXV last year and take it into this year?
Yeah, I think we can take a huge amount out of it. Really, it gave us a lot of belief in ourselves and what we were doing, and I think when we were over there and before we went, we spoke a lot about, like, awe versus belief. Because, like, these are big teams at the top table of the game. So your Canadas, your New Zealands, your Englands, your USAs, your Frances. And I suppose in the few years before that, we probably would have looked at that table from afar and been in awe of those players, world-class superstars. So what we went into that tournament believing that we could mix it with them, and I think we actually showed ourselves that we could as well. So we took a huge amount from it, and to be able to not just compete but win 2 games over there, it gave us a huge amount of momentum, and it just kind of solidified and gave us the backing that we needed just from ourselves. Because it was all, like, no matter what coaching you get or who's in the stands, who's up, whatever you do during the week, it's all about the 80 minutes on the pitch and the people out in the pitch. So to be able to actually put in the performances that we knew we had in the locker but we hadn't showed yet, it was hugely satisfying, and hopefully that's the start of now a big push for the next year and onwards.
Having that belief, that's a huge part of it, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it just gives you that kind of the confidence to know that all that work that you're doing in the background, that it bears fruit. Like you said, to have those 2 super wins over there, kind of, it gives you the confidence to go into this year to know that this Irish team can do something special over there. And like I said, it's a World Cup. It's on the big stage. And even taking it back years ago, when you were younger, have you any memories of watching the World Cup in you, kind of, or your own stand-up memories from a World Cup when you were younger?
Yeah, I probably my first hearing even about a women's World Cup was the women over in France beating the Black Ferns. When they made it to the semis, didn't they, and lost to England. And then, yeah, I watched all the men's World Cups over the years. Watched New Zealand win back-to-back 2011, 2015. Yeah, it's not, when you're watching them at that age, it's not something you ever imagine yourself doing. Seeing packed out stadiums, seeing world-class players. So yeah, it'll be a cool experience and something I'm really looking forward to.
Do you ever always have to pinch yourself in you just to see how far you've come, kind of like where you started off, and now here we are on a podcast chatting about taking on the Black Ferns in a sold out World Cup group game. Like it's a super story.
Yeah, to be honest, sometimes it happens on weeks off sometimes where I just take a step back and I'm just like, God, it's kind of unbelievable to be able to call this my job and to be able to travel and just play games with my best friends for a living. So yeah, I do feel incredibly lucky, and I barely believe it sometimes. I think when we're training, it can be very easy to get caught up in like the slog of it all and how, because it is hard work at the same time. But yeah, we've so much fun doing it as well that, God, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
You mentioned there the weeks off, and I presume they're becoming less and less as we get closer to the World Cup. But what would you do in a week off or a few days off just to unwind and kind of step outside the rugby bubble?
Yeah, I go home a lot. Yeah, it is rare to get a week off in this kind of profession, but yeah, I like to head home down to Castletownshend whenever I can and just spend a few days by the sea there, just yeah, with my parents, with my family, my nieces and nephews down there, just to completely get away from it all. Because especially with my nieces and nephews as well, they don't care what I do or what I don't do. If I my parents can be asking me all, every question about the game, but yeah, playing with my little nieces and nephews can just be refreshing in the exact break I need, because they don't care if I've won or lost or who I'm playing next or what injury I have. They just want to have some fun. So yeah, I do try to get home whenever I can, but I just like being outside as well. If I'm staying up in Dublin, where I'm living, I go to the sea or go to the coast and just get out for a walk and just decompress a little from it all, because it's a game where you can be very hard on yourself and you're your own worst critic at times, so it can be very easy to just get caught up in the bubble and be, if things aren't going well, you can just be very negative. So to be able to unwind and just not think about it all for a while is just lovely.
And that's probably something like you're quite experienced now. Like you probably learned that over the years, to have that separation between rugby and life, to can step outside the bubble and not be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, I think it's something I've probably learned over the years is more important the more I'm playing. So yeah, I can be very social at times, but I'm also quite introverted. So I've no problem, even in camp here in the evenings, I've no problem having a cup of tea or having a chat with the girls, but then just going into my room or just going out for a while and not talking to anybody. Even taking lifts in the morning, I nearly avoid bringing people in driving people in as much as I can, just so I can have 20 minutes in the car on my own listening to some music. But yeah, it is really important, and I think managing yourself off the pitch is probably what, for me anyway, helps get more out of me on the pitch. So if I'm in a good mental state, if I'm content, happier off the pitch, it really translates to my performance. So yeah, it's probably something I've been more deliberate with as I've gotten more experienced, I think.
And what does Enya Breen listen to in the car? Is it podcast? Is it music? These are the questions that our listeners want to know, Enya.
It can be a mix. If podcast wise, God, I enjoy a bit of comedy. So maybe My Therapist Ghosted Me with Joanne McNally and Vogue Williams, or I'm Grand Mam is one I've just started and I'm really enjoying. And then I actually listen to some rugby podcasts as well, which is a bit nerdy of me. But yeah, I listen to For the Love of Rugby with Ben Youngs and Dan Coles, I think it is. And they get different kind of guests on, like George Ford and things like that, and to be able to hear their perspective of the game and stuff and what they're seeing, it kind of just it I suppose it just gets me thinking and probably gives me a different perspective on the game that I can see if I can bring things into what I do on the pitch. And then music-wise, God, it could be anything. Country music, Taylor Swift, whatever is on the charts at the moment. Yeah, it's a big mix, but usually something I can sing along to.
Good stuff. And before I let you go, and just to touch on what you said there about listening to rugby podcasts, would you see yourself as almost a thinker of the game? Is that you want to get as much knowledge as you can just to kind of improve yourself, and you take bits off different people? Would you be someone like that? Like you mentioned, the kind of the word nerd earlier, like a rugby nerd in that sense, that you really want to kind of better yourself by soaking in as much as you can?
Yeah, I think so. Like there's only, as I'm getting older as well, there's only so much training I can do on the pitch to get better. So trying to make the most of my time off the pitch as well, especially like even around the HPC here, there's so much experience walking around when even like if the men's team are in, or even among the coaching team, they've like one of our assistant coaches, Gareth Steenson, has got a couple of 100 caps for Exeter, I'd say, at 10. So to be able to pick their brains and to see, not even to hear what they're looking for and what they're looking at, yeah, it can really just open up your eyes a little bit more. So yeah, I definitely would go. I wouldn't necessarily go looking for it, but I'd keep my ears open, and if I find something that kind of interests me, I'd be like, oh yeah, what's that? And I just have a think about it and see, because at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get better every day and be the best player that I can for the team. So if I can get even a little 0.5% off listening to a podcast or listening to Steno talk for 10 minutes, then that's brilliant, and I'll take that, because those kind of things don't come around too often, but they add up at the end of the day.
No, 100%. No, you've been super with your time, and you enjoy the next couple of weeks. Enjoy the hard slog. Enjoy your nieces and nephews, keeping you grounded ahead of your big World Cup, and the very best of luck in the weeks ahead. Okay.
Thanks a million, Kieran. Good to chat to you.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So it is that time of the week again where we look at what's in this Thursday Southern Star. So what should our readers expect this week, Kieran?
Yeah, it's absolutely packed again. We have another 28-pager, Matthew, and from this week it's been quite busy in Southern Star HQ just to try and put it all together. So there's a real treat in store for our readers on Thursday. So, like I said, we've an 8-page special from the Southern Star Schools Regatta. It's a regatta that we've been involved in for the last couple of years, and Matthew was at Kilcairn Lake on Friday evening to watch all the events unfold. So we've pictures of all the crews, from a variety of national schools right across the region. So that's a keepsake in Thursday's Southern Star Sport. And obviously intercounty we go quite heavy on this week. The big look ahead to the Cork Dublin game on Saturday. I've the interview with Anya Terry O'Sullivan. When I chat to Anya about her reasons for coming back into the Cork ladies football team this year. She had set out the last 2 seasons, but at 31 now she decided to throw her lot back in with Cork. So she explains her reasonings for that. We've some great local stories there too. Look at the Gabriel Rangers hurlers are through to the confined County Junior B hurling semi-finals. They had a super win the weekend. I was talking to Ollie O'Sullivan from Garnish GA Club about their Beast to Bear fundraiser coming up and what it's worth in terms of the community spirit, what it's worth to the club, and also talking about kind of progressive clubs. Kilmacabea GA Club are officially launching their Astro Pitch this Friday. In Lepford, the LGFA president is coming down to do the honours. On top of that, Matthew, you were talking to David White, who's the Carbery GA chairman, who doubles up as the Carbery hurling manager, and he's looking forward to their big game against Muskerry next week. And we have a world bronze medal, in West Cork right now. The Baltimore Sailors did fantastically well at the recent Team World Racing Championships, and I talked to Fionn Liddon there of Baltimore Sailing Club, and we've soccer in there. We've Nicola Tuttle's new hammer throw PB. We've an interview with John Buckley, the Munster FA chairman, who stepped down from that role and handed it over to Leslie Doyle from Bendon AFC. Goleen had their big party night last Saturday in the West Lodge and Bantry. So that's just a taster, Matthew. It's a really, really cracking Southern Star sport. So make sure you get your hands in it this week to keep up to date with all the local news from West Cork.
Exactly. So, and, as well as the A-page special on the regatta as well, and obviously the sports section, there is a supplement as well. Things to see and do in West Cork is this week too. Packed with hundreds of things to see and do across the West Cork region. Great for locals, holiday makers and visitors. So check that out as well in this week's edition. And as usual, if you are further afield or can't make it to the shops, you could subscribe to the Southern Star e-paper and get the Southern Star on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/subscribe, enter your details, and you'll get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Until then, take care.